Welcome back to Calculated Confusion Exposed. Today we are going to be discussing graphene oxide, a YouTube-sensitive topic. For those who don't know, graphene oxide is an ingredient being used in today's big science experiment. I'm sure you know what I mean by big science experiment. Let's take a look at several clips that explain graphene oxide and how it interacts with our bodies today.
Graphene is a form of carbon that's made from atomically thin sheets of the element. The way the carbon atoms are arranged in these sheets profoundly affects, for instance, the way that electrons pass through them, or how light and other forms of radiation interact with them, how strong they are, and how they react with other substances. This makes graphene incredibly versatile when it comes to designing new products with new and useful properties, but it also raises questions around how to use the material safely. For instance, graphene can kill viruses and bacteria that come into contact with it if it's designed in the right way. This is great news for products that need to be kept sterile, but what if these virus-killing materials get into your body? Will they do the same to your cells? The scientific jury is still out on this one, in part because there are so many ways of tweaking graphene that it's hard to pin down whether a particular form of it will be safe or not. However, we do know that if graphene-containing particles are able to get into your body, if they're small enough to get to places where it's easy to cause a lot of damage, into your lungs for instance, or into your cells, and if they stick around once there, some forms of it could cause harm. The problem is, it's hard to tell how much graphene might be needed to cause a problem, whether any damage that occurs as a result will be mild or harsh, or if it'll be short-lived or long-lasting. The line is that graphene is a pretty cool material that has a lot of potentially beneficial uses, but just because it's made of carbon doesn't mean that it's safe. And because of this, you should probably think twice about using graphene-containing products unless you're sure the risks are low or you think the benefits are worth it.
Graphene will soon take over the world. People get fuel right out of thin air. The shortage of water on Earth has come to an end because ocean water has become drinkable. Metals don't rust anymore. People don't have any need for electric bulbs, replacing them with glowing wallpaper. Humans are steadily becoming biotic. That's not the latest sci-fi movie we're describing. It's a very probable and very close future that will become possible thanks to the wonder material called graphene. Graphene is incredibly stretchy. It can stretch as much as 25% of its length. This material is also really stiff. Actually, it's the hardest material people know about. Even harder than diamonds, and that says a lot. In fact, nothing less than an elephant balancing on a sharpened pencil will be able to pierce graphene. Despite being two-dimensional, graphene can still be seen, and you don't even need to bother with a microscope. This single layer of atoms is perfectly visible to the naked eye. One more great thing about graphene is its relationship with electricity. This material carries electricity more quickly, more precisely, and more efficiently than any other known material. The reason is that the current density of graphene is many million times better than that of copper. As for its intrinsic mobility, it's much better than silicon. Thus, electrons have no resistance when they move through graphene. As a result, people can potentially use graphene to produce batteries that will have 10 times the electrical retention capacity of anything we have today. One more quality of graphene that scientists find extremely interesting is that it expands when cooled and shrinks when it gets warm. There are no other examples of materials with a similar quality. All normal substances act in the opposite way. They become larger when they are heated and smaller when they get cold. However hard you try, you won't be able to squeeze even a single atom of helium through graphene. This makes this semi-metal the most impermeable material discovered so far. Consequently, graphene can function as the ideal gas detector. At the same time, while atoms have difficulty getting through graphene, there's nothing simpler for electrons. According to Professor Geim, that makes this material perfect for conducting experiments in high-speed quantum physics. Graphene has huge potential. That's probably why the EU devoted $1.3 billion to research that's supposed to last for a decade, from 2013 to 2023. This research is intended to find out how graphene can alter the very principles of the electronics, health, construction, and energy sectors. Super strong body armor. One layer of graphene is impressive enough. Can you imagine what you could achieve with 2 layers of this super material? Nothing short of incredibly strong body armor. Researchers from Georgia Tech have recently demonstrated how 2 atomic layers of graphene manage to remain intact after scientists tried to perforate them with a diamond tip. Healthcare. Scientists at the University of Illinois have discovered that graphene can assist in detecting cancerous cells in the body. Researchers from the University of Texas have invented temporary tattoos that are based on graphene. These tattoos are far from a simple body decoration. They can keep track of a person's vitals, including their level of hydration and skin temperature.
Пока выключены. Сейчас я набираю номер. И смотрите, что будет происходить. Вот он, вызов пошел. Смотрите, что теперь. Ну. Вызов идет, если вы можете смотреть, видите. Такая вот непонятная хреновина. Интересно, в голове у нас то же самое творится. Когда я первый раз это обнаружил, даже страшно стало. Ну все, я выключаю. Вот, пожалуйста, все. Так не действует ничего. Как только мы опять звоним, вот он пошел вызов, вот он, пожалуйста. Что это за явление? Я такого еще не встречал и не видел. Да и смотреть страшно и противно.
Better cell service comes at a cost, and not just your bill, but on how your neighborhood looks and sounds.
These 30-foot tall poles are popping up in communities all around Denver, and when all is said and done, there could be 500 of them spread throughout the city. We'll argue.
New cell towers are popping up all over Tucson, and that has some neighbors concerned. 9 News Side's Greg Bradbury reports.
A state senator is drafting legislation aimed at giving homeowners more power when it comes to 5G towers in their neighborhood. Senator J.D. Ford is making this push following several stories from WRTV Investigates.
Eric White has taken on a big battle against new 5G cell towers like this one put up last year. Wednesday morning, he testified at a State House hearing about House Bill 1164. He addressed lawmakers directly about the bill, saying it favors carriers more than the people that voted for them.
And asked them to consider amending the bill so that it's a little bit more intelligent about what it allows carriers to do when they're operating in residential areas.
The top concerns about the bill include no restrictions on height for new towers and that carriers can place towers anywhere they want with no distance restrictions. And Bill 1164 eliminates local government oversight for tower rules and regulations. Eric serves as president for the North Willow Farms Homeowners Association.
The shocking information. Already heard that they examined it under regular microscope and electron microscope, and they came up with those really ugly pictures of those bulbous pictures with the black mesh intertwined. Here's the ratio of what they found in those, Stu. There were 6 nanograms per UL of RNA. Do you know how much graphene oxide was in there? 747 nanograms. Do the math, my friends. That is a percentage of 99.99103%. It's virtually 99.99% graphene oxide. Simplistic depiction of what happens when these graphene sheets that these investigators found when they get into your system and when they start to penetrate your cells, which they have a lipid nanoparticle that pushes them into your cells. You get oxidative stress. You know, you're always worried about taking your antioxidant pills. Well, this is the oxidative stress that you're taking it against and to protect yourself from. It destroys literally everything inside the cell. It explodes the mitochondria. It creates a situation where your body is on a 10 alarm, like a 10 alarm, fire truck. And inflammation, cytokines, chemokines, this incredibly violent, if you will, inflammatory storm comes in. And it has particular affinity for creating acute inflammation of the lungs. It creates an inflammatory storm in cardiac tissue and in brain tissue. Stu, this is going to tie directly to strokes, to the heart attacks. What they did was...
The final clips we are going to take a look at are from the channel A Call to an Uprising. This video drops gems of info as well, showing you several clips of predictive programming in the media, which is a common occurrence on many events in history.
Let's put some ferrofluid on the plate. Ferrofluid is made of nanoparticles of iron, and when you apply a magnetic field to them, they follow the magnetic field lines in this spiky pattern here. The stronger the magnetic field is, the closer together the spikes form. So first let me show you what happens when I move a regular magnet near the ferrofluid. You can see it just sucks it up to the magnet. Okay, now let's bring the superconductor up to it. Okay, watch it push the spikes out of the way as I bring it close. That's because it's opposing the magnetic field at first. Now if I were able to get it closer, then it would lock in place and it wouldn't push the spikes out of the way. But if I push it any closer, it's going to go into the ferrofluid. Another cool thing I observed is that when you bring it near the ferrofluid, the spikes actually start to flow towards it. Now this seemed odd to me because there wasn't a reason magnetically why it should do that. So I tested it with just plastic that was cold, not a superconductor, and it did the same thing.
Bring it over to the point of the bolt and just gently drop it on there.
Okay.
In fact, you don't even have to touch it. it'll get pulled right over because of the magnetic
wow,
field.
Look at it building up. Whoa, that is so cool. It's turning, I don't even know how to describe it. It almost looks like if I touched it, it'd be spiky.
Watch this. Okay,
wow.
The magnet is actually drawing those particles. Keep loading it up. We're gonna see how much fluid we can get on here. If you notice, you look really close, you can see they're like little spikes.
Yeah, that's what it almost looks like. If I were to touch it, it would be spiky. Clearly, I know that's not the case.
It's actually soft. It's still a liquid, but because of the magnetic field, it's actually taking on a different shape. Those little particles are actually little magnets, but they've been coated with a surfactant so they won't stick to themselves. But in the presence of a very strong magnet, they'll begin to take on these interesting shapes.
Oh, look, it's starting to get spiky even on the threading of the bolt.
Yeah.
That is super neat.
So it's fighting against gravity. The gravity is pulling it down. The magnet's pulling it down. Surface tension is trying to create these interesting shapes.
Sure.
But so it looks cool, right?
Yeah,
it's
looks
really
very
interesting.
cool.
Very cool. What would you use it for? Is the real question. And so if you have a hard drive with a spinning axis that you want to seal, you can use ferrofluid. You put 2 magnets around the axle, and the ferrofluid will form a seal around the axle. Or if you want to separate things that are non-magnetic, this is a copper penny.
Sure, but we know that it's only partially, not fully copper, right?
You're right.
Okay.
It's zinc inside and a little copper on the outside, but in either case, it's not magnetic. Okay,
right.
It
Yeah,
won't
we
stick
know
to
that.
anything.
It's not going to stick to the fridge or anything like that.
How would I separate that out? We can use ferrofluid. So watch
Really?
this. Load up my little cup with some ferrofluid. Just use the whole container. Just
like
you
that.
can
Just
pour
dump it in?
Yeah, just dump it in. It's okay. And if we,
That good?
yeah, that's perfect. If we take the magnet and drop it inside, no great surprise, it's simply going to sink to the bottom.
Sure.
Now, here's where things might get a little bit messy. Watch out.
Woo!
Okay. If I take this super strong magnet and pull it away and put it underneath,
whoa,
the penny will float to the top.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately. And if I take it away from the magnet, the penny sinks.
Wow.
If I bring it down to the ferrofluid,
And
penny
so
floats
that's
to
just
top.
the force?
The ferrofluid is actually, and I can have you feel it. I'm going to put this magnet back under the plate, and I want you to reach in with your gloves and touch that clump of ferrofluid. What does it feel like? Describe
Oh,
that.
gel. It feels like a hard, gooey gel, and I can't grab it off here even though I want to.
The density of the
Yeah.
material has changed in the presence of a magnetic field. And this is one way that recyclers can actually separate non-magnetic or non-ferrous metals from magnetic metals.
That is so neat. And yeah, you can't, I'm trying to even separate it, and it won't work.
It feels like jello.
Yep.
It's really weird. But if we do take the magnet away, I'll try not to splash, it goes right back to a liquid.
Wow, that is really neat. So then this almost, in theory, can be reused as well. The actual...
It can, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
There's even some talk of using this sort of nanotechnology to target drugs. So if we attach a specific drug to the nanoparticles here, we could put it in an entire body and it would all be dilute. But if we target an organ with a strong magnetic field, we can actually cause all of the drugs to go to that one location.
So in theory, if you needed maybe a heart medicine that you didn't want going elsewhere,
In theory, yes.
there could be a magnet used so that we could...
Could target that stuff using the tiny nanoparticles, and then take the field away. It disperses throughout the body, and you're fine.
Can't commit to anything but a crime. Leaders on vacation and invite them. Hills burn in California. Quiet and I'm coming home and I'm on my own. Let me let you go.
I'm afraid you won't survive.
Some cells inside me will fight and defend their integrity till the very end.
am Venom. You did not find us. We found you. Think of yourself as my bride.
You gonna eat anybody else?
Most likely. Is why we are here.